The Jaguars and the
It's
Lions.
huge.
Huge story, all right? This is primarily going to be about the Jaguars. We can talk about the Lions every single week, which I love the Lions, love MCDC, Jared Goff, beautiful people. But I want to talk about the Jags because they're kind of doing exactly what the Lions did, but like a week later of a start. They're kind of having a Cinderella story coming back. So right here I have the stats of Trevor Lawrence the past 6 weeks. You can see 4 wins, 2 losses. Statistically, he has been the best quarterback in the NFL the past 6 weeks. You can see a stat line right there. You can see how he has thrown 13 touchdowns and 1 interception. He's had a very high completion percentage and a very high amount of yards every single game, with the exception of the Lions again. That's the only game he played bad against. Every single quarterback rating is over 100. He has 109, 121, 129, 106, 109. Like I said, minus the Detroit game. But here are some quarterbacks that he is playing better statistically in the last 6 weeks. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa. I didn't even bother bringing up any other quarterbacks because I don't think anyone outside of that list is considered best in the league besides those few. Trevor Lawrence has played better than all of them the past 6 weeks, which is enough of, I think, of a sample size to indicate that he is that guy. Now, I said before I wasn't the biggest fan of Trevor Lawrence. Watching him, I don't get that feeling when I watch him like I do someone else that I think is going to be a young stud. But I've always said that I appreciate his grit. I like how he talks in the locker room. He's a good leader. And the way he takes accountability for the losses, I love it. I think he's a good leader. He is proving anyone wrong who even had a doubt, which I don't think there was many people. I think everyone kind of wrote off his last year because of Urban Meyer and what Urban Meyer did, which, hey, we're not even going to talk about that. But you guys know what Urban Meyer did. You know what he did to people at his personal bar and to his kicker that he kicked. Just decided to kick as one of his players. Horrible coach. I am on the same page of like forgiving his rookie year. Like I said, as a guy who's not a big Trevor Lawrence fan, I am as fair as I can be to everyone, and I'm not going to count that against him because that was just not his fault. But their offense has been rolling. They have scored a lot of points. They beat Dallas scoring 40 points. They beat Titans scoring 36 points. They beat the Ravens scoring 28 points. And they beat the Raiders scoring 27 points. They lost to the Chiefs and lost to the Lions. But the Chiefs are a powerhouse team, and the Lions are, I say, a powerhouse team at this point. They've won 6 of the last 7. They're kind of going off. So Trevor Lawrence has played his ass off, and I think that the Cinderella story of the AFC and NFC is the Lions and the Jaguars. And what do you guys think are the odds that they both make the Super Bowl? Because at this point, it's possible. They're both really hot right now. They both are in the bubble for playoffs. What do you think happens to the NFL world if the Jaguars and the Lions make it to the Super Bowl and play against each other? What do you think happens then? What does that do to people?
I think we have a new contender for most unwatched Super Bowl in the modern era. I mean, I don't.
You think that'd be least watched?
That will happen, but if it did happen, I don't think there's that many Detroit or Jags fans, to be honest. I mean, maybe I'll get some angry people in the comments that are like, Gian, did you have something to say?
No, I'm raising my hand because I actually do like both the Jags and the Lions.
I do too, dude. At this point, I do.
No, I mean, I think
like them both.
that people, some people maybe enjoy watching them if they're on, but I'm not. If there is a Lions game, that's on, or a Chargers game, I think, sure, maybe I'll watch the Lions game over the Chargers game. But that's only because I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Ohio, right? So, they're close to home. I don't think the average NFL football fan really cares that much about the Lions, other than the fact that they've really stunk it up, the last 10 years. And both of those franchises have really been pretty much, a step above the Browns, but in the same conversation, mentioned in that same breath, maybe not the Jags so much as, the Lions, but they just have been kind of notorious for,
I see what you're saying, and I think I agree with you. You're saying they don't have a fan base like the Bills and the Bengals and the Chiefs and stuff like that, where people tune in to watch them every week. What I think they have, and this is where I think Gian and I both fall, and where a lot of people fall in. It's not for a casual NFL viewer or people who really like watching football. We love when we see teams like this get good, because they're not teams that we love or hate. They're teams we just feel mad about. And when they get in there and start kicking ass, it's just awesome to watch, because you don't ever expect it. I feel bad for both fan bases. I think that they both need it. I love watching them as opposed to, let's say, the Packers get in there for the 8th time just to choke an NFC Championship game. So I like it. I love watching that. Their play of football. I think it's awesome to watch this kind of underdog story happen. It reminds me of when the Giants went and beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl after the Patriots' undefeated season, and this kind of the scrappy, barely made it in Giants team. It's like, yeah, they're all right. They lost the Patriots in the regular season. Well, how do they even make it to the Super Bowl? And then they went in there and kicked ass. So I think it's kind of that same thing. I think it's one of those where, like, if your team's eliminated and you just need someone to root for, it's one of these two teams because you just like them as opposed to the other guys who are like, as opposed to the guys who make the playoffs every year. It's like, yeah, let's get something new and let's put the Lions in the NFC Championship game. Like, that's not something you've heard in your entire lifetime. So that's something that I think people would prefer to hear than Eagles and Cowboys. Like, whatever. Like, those two teams are good. We knew that. But yeah, no, I think I agree with, like, they don't have as good of, like, deep fan bases, but I think that they have the people that don't have that if your team's eliminated, you're going to go for one of those two teams as opposed to someone else because those two teams are just good. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that. We kind of talked about the Jaguars making it in a minute ago, but yeah, I wanted to just demonstrate this because I think that the Jaguars make the playoffs. I think they probably win out the rest of this season, but they can even lose a game and still make it because the Titans just suck. But I think the Jaguars do it. I don't know who they're going to be playing against. If they make it, probably play it against the Chiefs. No, they'd be the 4th seed, not the 7th seed. They probably play against the Chargers. Maybe that'd be a good game. Jags-Chargers. I mean,
oh yeah,
be a high-scoring game.
Jags
very
would take that
pass-heavy.
after. I think the Jags would take that game if they played the Chargers, because I don't think that the offense has been reliable enough on the Chargers' part to. And just with how hot the Jags have been,
here's the thing, Frank. They played against each other in Week 3. The Jaguars and the Chargers did.
Okay.
And it was a blowout.
And what happened with that?
It was a blowout.
Really?
38-10.
In favor of the Chargers?
The Jaguars, dude. The Jaguars beat them 38-10. So you're right.
Yeah.
I think you are 100% right, Frank. I think that if they play, then the Jaguars probably win. I mean, I think both teams are better now than they were then, but I think the Jaguars have gotten more better than the Chargers have gotten better. If that makes sense. I think you know what I'm saying.
Justin Herbert has also been playing injured with that rib injury that I think people have forgotten about, but, he's still there. If you've been playing for, maybe 5 weeks, I think, with that injury to the ribs and not giving it any rest, which I think it was a terrible decision on the doctor's part to allow him to do that, but if you've been doing that and aggravating that, it's kind of like Baker Mayfield last season for the Browns. He was playing with a torn labrum, and if you don't give things time to heal, I think that affects your play, and I think we're seeing that.
Well, here's the other thing as well. Like, obviously the Chargers have one of the best receiving corps in the NFL, and they've been dealing with injuries with that, but they're healthy now, and they've been playing better with them. So when I say what I'm about to say, I don't mean it to take away from the Chargers, but the Jaguars have... Their passing game has been insane the past few weeks. Zay Jones, I want to talk about specifically. Christian Kirk, we know is a guy. I think people hated that he got paid too much this offseason, but he's still a really good wide receiver one. He's a great fit for that team. Evan Ingram proved that he can do it, 2 weeks ago.
Travis
He was kind of a bum on the Giants, dropping easy balls, but he kind of proved that he can do it on the Jaguars this year. You got Zay Jones. Let me tell you something about Zay Jones. I have him in 2 fantasy leagues, and he scored me over 30 points. 6 catches for 109 yards and 3 touchdowns. So you have a situation where you're not relying on one receiver to catch everything. If you got a guy like... I don't know, Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard, one of these top-tier cornerbacks covering Christian Kirk. You got Zay Jones who can go out there and get 3 touchdowns a game and make plays like that. So I just don't see what's stopping the Chargers offense. I mean, I don't understand how they lost to the Lions because the Lions have a horrible defense. I don't know what happened there. That was an anomaly because that's like the worst defense in the NFL is the Lions, and they managed to only score 14 points on them. So I don't understand. But when they play good teams like Dallas, Titans, Ravens, they beat them. And they beat them good. Very high volume pass offense, very good, very efficient. So I think that if they play the Chargers, I think it's a closer game than 38-10. But I think that it is a game that goes into the Jaguars' favor. I don't know. I think that's what the story leads me to believe is that. And then after that, I mean, I can't even begin to predict who they play after that because there's so many other games that have to fall into place. But they probably play the Chargers there. Maybe the Ravens. If the Ravens end up, winning out, then they play the Ravens, and they beat the Ravens earlier this season. That was a very good game, actually.
Yeah.
Jaguars Ravens, and you could say, that was a bad call in some of those, which I agree some of those are bad calls, but either way they beat him, and Trevor Lawrence had a 129.8 passer rating. So Trevor Lawrence played great against the Ravens. And I think they're better now than they were then as well. Zay Jones has stepped up, Evan Ingram has stepped up, so I think the Cinderella stories are great. I love that we have one for the AFC and the NFC. Some people thought it might be the Browns, but I think that because Deshaun Watson's leading that, they can't have a Cinderella story because it's like, oh, Cinderella story, but he might. I'm going to say might because, I don't want to levy any accusations, but he might have touched people. So, Deshaun Watson's...
but it's pervy.
Yeah. They might have done that, but, who knows. Anyway, so that's about that. I just wanted to brag about Trevor Lawrence for a second because, like I said, I'm tough, but I'm fair. All right, I'm not a huge Trevor Lawrence guy, but he has played his ass off, and we are a source of information for you guys. And I would be dishonest if I didn't talk about how good he's been playing, and I think we all agree on that. Even if we don't like a guy, we got to talk about how good they do. All right. So we're gonna move on to the bum of the week.